Hello, everybody. So I'm very glad to be a part of this program, and thanks to NCCI team for inviting me in such a wonderful event. So uh, as the program is focused on the queer inclusion, in different domain, I would like to present uh, you know, uh, findings of a research which I, along with Pawan Dhal from Kolkata, had conducted in the recent year. So the project, it was a kind of what to say, pilot project, and the project was basically focused on the social and economic inclusion of the queer peoples in Manipur. So I'll be talking mostly based on the Manipur context because the research was completely based on Manipur. So when we talk about inclusion and exclusion of peoples, then we also need to understand the ground realities of the kind of people that has been encountering social and other mode of exclusion from the larger realm of society and from the larger realm of other authority. So first of all, we need to, in order to understand the exclusion, the mode of exclusion, that I will be using the term gender and sexual minority in this, in this topic, because this will able to cover all those peoples who identify themselves beyond the binary gender and sexuality. So first of all, in order to understand the exclusion of the community in different domain of the society, in different religious space, in different government and private sector, we also need to go in depth about the ground reality that the community are facing in the family, community, education, skill buildings, employment, workplace, security, social security, healthcare, laws and policy, etc. Because why this is important is like until and unless we are able to understand the scenario of the community of the MSM, no, gender and sexual minority community in this domain, then it will be very difficult for us to come up with very finite ideas of, finite ideas to include gender and sexual minorities in every domain. So first of all, how the community queer peoples are treated in the family and the community. For example, there is no acceptance in the family and the local community, and there is constant verbal and physical harassment faced by the community in family and the local neighbors and community. So there is also, when the community are facing kind of troubles or any sort of difficulties, then the community, there is no uh, peoples around to provide emotional and financial support to the community. For example, just take as an example, in my case, even though I identified as a woman, people often, see me through the lens of body essentialism. People always question me, what is between your two legs? So it's kind of really hurting me, and also it's against my feminine identity, and this really, pulls down my self-esteem and other sort of, mental ability. So in case of education sector also, there is no process of trans inclusive admission. There is missing gender option. Maybe the faculty and staff are insensitive towards this unconventional gender identity, or they are very much ignorant about the lives of gender and sexual minorities. And then non-normative gender expression leads to verbal physical harassment by faculty, bullying by other students, and there is also absence of complaint mechanism and or ineffectiveness of this. If there is complaint mechanism also, it's not effective. And then inadequate infrastructure like toilet, which is very important because there were a lot of incidents where community peoples, face kind of very severe harassment and acute discrimination in the toilet area. And talking about the skill development, skill buildings, there is no admission process. In the admission process, there is no trans inclusive in all the training center, and there is limited avenues of the training available. And then it's not, if the training is available, then it's not aligned to the desired skills of the community. And then here also there was no inadequate infrastructure. And in employment and workplace also, in the organizational policies of every institution, there is a non-inclusion of gender and sexual minority peoples, and then there is insensitive employers, colleagues, and then people are very much ignorant about the lived experience of gender and sexual minority peoples. And then there is also restriction of gender expression. There is a lot of restriction on gender expression in employment and workplace. And we also challenge to get a greater job security and an employment benefit. For example, for the for just take as an example, if a gay person has a partner, then when the gay partner gets sick, then he's not able to get the leave to look after his partner. So there is no such provision in their organizational policy, and the gender policy is completely based on the binary construct. And workplace harassment and unfair dismissal, and then even when this happens, when the community wanted to put up a complaint, there is no complaint mechanism, and then job available don't match with the community's one job available is not matched with the desire pertinent skills that the community has. And also talking about the social security, uh, there are welfare boards in the country. There are several welfare boards in different states in the countries, but actually it's not functioning. And then there is lack of clarity among the government officials. And then some central welfare schemes accessible in desired gender identity, but trans-specific schemes yet to start. And then there is corruption, stigma, discrimination, and this leads to the access to this leads to barrier to accessibility. And in the healthcare also, there is a lot of stigma, discrimination, and disrespectful attitude among healthcare providers, create barriers to health services, access in general, zero or adequate focus on specific health concern around HIV, mental health, and feminization and masculinization process. And then there is also inadequate infrastructure for trans person, toilet, bed, wards. And coming to the laws and policy, most of the laws and policy understand only male and female gender binary or criminalize same-sex sexual act. And then there is no legal recognition of same-sex marriage, related family, tax benefit. And in Manipur, the Manipur State Legal Services Authority is supportive. Manipur Transgender Welfare Board exists, but police harassment is still widely prevalent. So many gender variant children drop out of schools, college, and are denied their rights to education. And all these are the reason and the outcome of such unwanted incident, and then ill treatment leads to many incident of schools and college dropout, and then lower literacy rate. Census 2011 was 68% among trans people and 80% among overall state population. And then it also leads to job insecurity, leading to poor health, care, nutrition, and housing, high depression and anxiety levels. And then there is also suicidal and self-harm tendency. And then there are many incidents of suicide. And then a lot of community are on substance use. And then there is also this STI and then HIV vulnerability, higher level of HIV prevalence among MSM and trans women. And then we also have challenge to limited social mobility, limited access to public space. Why I'm reflecting all these points is because if we really wanted to talk and then wanted to find an avenue to start queer inclusion in every domain, including church, then we also need to understand the ground reality, the social and cultural paradigm of, the social and cultural paradigm that's associated with the community in every region, in every state. So according to me, what is necessary in order to fulfill or in order to make sure that there is gender and sexual minority inclusion in every domain, including religion domain, is we need to do in-depth research about to develop a map of the gender and sexual minority in the Northeast, and then generating a baseline tools for advocacy on greater inclusion of gender and sexual minority in church. Um, and then because this we cannot just focus on the church leader only, we also need to expand this word to other influencer in the church. Like there are church leader, there are reverend, there are a lot of, I'm not having a very good knowledge about all the denomination and all the position that's in the church, but actually we also need to bring out people who are really a good influencer to the Christian community, because they will definitely have people to understand the realities of the gender and sexual minority peoples. Because this influencer could be from the entrepreneurs, and this influencer could be from the human rights activists, from educationists, or from the government department, or from anywhere. This influencer can be picked from any domain, because when they speak from their mouth on behalf of the community, then people will definitely listen. And only the church peoples or the church leader can't do this inclusion project from there on, because we need to have a larger number of people to influence and to educate people on the gender and sexual minority subject. So like I've seen there are a lot of there are a lot of mission schools in the Northeast run by the Christian community. Or we can start looking from there when we talk about the inclusion of the gender and sexual minority in church. Then we can start looking on this also. We can start finding out where are the possible space, or where are the possible provision that could possibly provide to the gender and sexual minority peoples, to make sure that these peoples get education and they get the interest to continue their education. And we also need to make sure that the faculty or the peoples around the church or in the educational institutes are very much sensitive towards the gender and sexual minority individual, because there were a lot of incidents where the children, the non-conforming children, drop out schools because of the negative attitude which they have received from the staff and faculty members. So when the staff and faculty members are not supporting the non-conforming children, then there is no way out for the child to gain the spirit to continue the education. First of all, we need to make sure that in every institution there is enabling environment for the gender and sexual minority peoples. And for the trans people only, freedom of gender expression in terms of dressing in every institution and then in every domain is very important. Because, for example, in Manipur, a trans woman who is 35 years, she is a designer, she said freedom to dress as desire should be there in all training institutes, because main reason for school dropout among transgender peoples was discomfort with the stereotype manners of dressing. This might be an issue for peoples in general, but was a big problem for the trans community. This not only affected life and education, but also was an oppressive act and a human rights violation. So leading training centers were likely to provide freedom of gender expression in terms of dressing, because, you know, like this happens after our advocacy work. And then one trans women respondent said that no trans person was ever barred from dressing up as they like in the training center she knew of. But, you know, like these are the things which are happening. And then we also need to do a lot of advocacy work, and parallelly we also need to you know, scale up awareness and sensitization programs in in different domain. And also, like, I think we also need to stress upon, you know, the theological book to include gender and sexual minorities subject, a chapter, or, you know, like in a very simple in a very simple language which the common people can easily understand what about the gender and sexual minorities peoples. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for us to make people understand what is gender sexuality, because many of the peoples they are very much reluctant to talk about the gender and sexual minority identity, because it's beyond their belief, and then it's beyond their experience. So in order to make these peoples understand, and in order to make these peoples very much aware of this gender and sexual minority community, then we need to build the relationship with all these you know, common peoples through sensitization, through developing IEC material. And then this has to be constantly this has to be a constant program. You just can't do like you are getting a project and then doing based on the project protocol, and then when the project officially closed, then you stop looking after the community. It's not be like that. There should be a sustainable kind of program that that will at least enable the, you know, the peoples to continue the work on this inclusion project. So these are some of the things which I wanted to, you know, flag out here. So if people have any question, then I think
that's fine.
better for me to do the interaction, because I'm not good in presentation, honestly. If people ask me question, then I'll be ready to respond to every question.
Yeah. Friends, thank you, Santa, for speaking so broadly, explaining certain realities that community members face. And you also had put very interestingly what church should do, what theological education should intervene at this point, and what the political structures should intervene. So you very clearly explained to us. Now, let me open the floor for our friends to have any questions. If they have any specific questions to ask you related to the struggles that you go through, maybe that would be more helpful. You can just talk to them. Any questions, friends? Any question to ask Santa?
If people have question, or else if people have confusion, please ask me. I can respond to that.
Yeah.
Hello, Santa.
Hi, hi.
I'm Judy. Yeah, I'm Judy. It's really good to hear your story. One question that I have is I know that society, when we look at the society, there's always rejection and stigmatization that you face as a person who you are.
Mm.
But for me, what I want to ask you is your personal experience. Is there any time that you face difficulty in accepting, or any difficulty that you personally face within yourself? Is there any war or fights that you go through in your head? Not an
Yeah,
external, yeah, not an external force, but within you, as who you are.
yeah, I had. There was a phase of time in my life where I had conflict with with my gender identity and my body. And I am a kind of person who had a severe psychological fear when I enter my puberty, because there was a time where I did not want to sit in front of the mirror because my body here started growing, and then I started looking masculine. So that was the time where I was very confused, and then I was not able to, I was not ready to accept myself. And it was a time where I felt a suicidal tendency. I had conflict with my father, I had conflict with my family members, I conflict with my, neighbors. So it was a very difficult time. It was a very difficult time because my uncomfortability with my body was in a very high degree. But
Mm.
gradually I started I started accepting myself. I learned how to accept myself. I read books. I basically did not read books based on a very formal gender education, but actually I read a lot of spiritual book in order to improve my thinking capability, in order to improve my spirits, to accept myself. So that was how I was able to tackle the situation.
And how is it now that you have come out, you have expressed who you are, and that you're living in the society as the person you are? What is the struggle that you go through personally today?
Uh, every person has their own little struggle. I have a
Mhm.
larger struggle. Apart from this struggle, larger struggle for my community, human rights, I do have my little struggle. Like I, you know, at the time I'm struggling uh, to get a good shelter, to get a good house, because my
Mm.
house is flooded with this artificial flood, because I live in a very old and damaged house. So this is the current struggle. And then
Mm.
the second thing is, like, it's very difficult for me to locked up in the four-sided world for 3 months, 4 months. And then
Mm.
even I wanted to support other people's also. There is a lot of restriction from the government, which uh, mm, uh, I certainly failed to fulfill my wish to help and support others. So these are the challenges, and then I am in a situation where I still have this reluctant to take the vaccination, because I have my central concern with my health condition, because I'm a person who went through a series of surgery and my body was cut for several times, and I'm on hormones. And even the government did not say that taking vaccination is protocol, but on the other hand, they are trying to reinforce the people to take the vaccination. So this is also a kind of dilemma which I have been, dealing with at the time.
But thank you so much, Santa. I hope your struggles will be lesser. Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you, Judy. Any other questions?
I have seen people's, I have seen people's from the Northeast, like their face resemble with the Northeast people's in this.
Mhm.
I wish they also ask question because they are my peoples. It's important
Okay.
for me to.
Mm.
Dear customer, your phone number is not registered with any of the apps.
Yeah, any other questions, please? If not, then we will move to the next question. Anybody wanted to ask?
Can I
Yes,
ask the
yes,
question?
Yes,
yes.
yes.
Jonathan
Thank
Stanley,
you,
yeah.
Shanta, for your
Yeah.
wonderful life experience that you have shared, and you have shared your concerns and your thoughts. For me, I would like to ask you in which way, uh, apart from the acceptance in the church or else in the society or else in the schools, what do you expect more apart from the acceptance? Your talk mostly based on the acceptance part. Your talk mostly
I
based on the acceptance part, and apart from the acceptance, what do you expect more from the church as well as from the society? And the second one is, are the children completely neglected in the mission schools, which you have stated that you want the children to be included, children to be included in the schools? Are they completely neglected, or how many children are left out from the school? Thank you.
okay. I will not be talking more on acceptance, because acceptance is a kind of word that carries a very heavy meaning. Okay, acceptance comes from humanity. When you are able to, when you have the ability to accept a person, irrespective of the person's identity, gender, sexuality, whatever it's associated with the person, then definitely the acceptance will follow. So acceptance is something which is very theoretical, but actually if we could able to create a very humanity, a sense of humanity in every person's being, then acceptance will comes automatically. This is what I understand. So I don't expect anything. I don't expect anything from anybody, because the system itself is a binary structure. It's completely based on the binary gender construct. And in this system, how can I expect something good from that? So I don't expect anything. The system is never on our side, but still I'll not give up, and then I'll continue shouting, screaming, writing, to make people aware of the reality of the lived experience of gender and sexual minority. Maybe not today, people might not be recognized how the gender and sexual minority people are struggling, but actually in the years to come, maybe 10 years from now, people, my word will at least benefit to the larger interest of the peoples, in order, like, to make them understand the importance of inclusivity, the importance of bringing in all the peoples, the integrity, solidarity, intersectionality. So I think this is more important than talking about acceptance, because when we talk about dignity, how can we talk about dignity? How can a person gives dignity to another person? It's not possible. When we work together, when we have a common aspiration, then dignity will comes automatically. Okay, and then the second thing is like talking about the school dropout, the rejection in mission schools. I studied in a boys' school in Don Bosco, which was a very prominent school during my time. I faced a lot of harassment, bullied in schools. But my parent was a kind of, a couple who were very much into education, and then they wanted their children to get a good education. That was the reason why I was able to continue till 12th standard. But for other people who are neglected by their parents, then for these children, they are not able to continue their education, then they will just leave education, they will discontinue their education, then they will just go to a parlor and working there. When they started working at the parlor, they started earning money, and are able to financially support their parents. So it becomes a kind of phenomenon, and the parents started treating trans children as a arrays of tools for earning money, which is a very sad scenario and a very ugly truth. So like for the, if the mission schools wanted inclusion of transgender and wanted to promise all the non-conforming children, I won't talk about trans people only, all the non-conforming children to get a higher education, to get a quality education, then I wish mission schools come up with initiative like giving subsidy admission fee, and then inclusion of non-conforming children in their policy, and also keeping a counselor, gender sensitive, gender affirmative counselor in every mission school, so that if a non-conforming child happens to encounter a kind of harassment or bullied or any kind of ill treatment, then the counselor can help the child to tackle the situation. This is what I think it's important.
Okay. Thank you, Santa. Thank you, Charles, for that question.
Yeah, because Father, in the northeast, except a larger part of Assam and Manipur, most of the state and then Tripura, most of the state are Christian dominated. Okay, and then in these states, I have seen most of my community members are not able to come out from the closet. And when I interacted with them, what they had responded to me was that the Christian, the church leader, they are very strict and they are very much against the gender and sexual minority peoples. And in Mizoram, I heard a story. One trans girl was stripped in public by a youth organization which is supported by the Christian community, by the church community. So things are happening. So it's only Manipur in the valley where trans people are very visible, because we have a kind of gender, we have a kind of belief system of gender plurality and gender multiplicity, and we do have historical roots of unconventional gender people performing in different social performance and then in the ritual performance. So this makes the community to live in the society, and the society is with tolerance towards the trans peoples in the valley of Manipur. But in the hill, the scenario is still the same like other states in the northeast. So there need more, more sensitization, awareness with the support from the NCCI. I was able to conduct one awareness program in one district in Manipur, Churachandpur, with the Presbyterian Church. And those participants which were from the Christian community, the question they raised were like very irritated and very, very uncomfortable. So that also give me a hint of how deep the transphobic and homophobic is there inside this community. So there's a lot of work need to do. There is no literature. Literature is very important, Father. Literature is very important. If you really wanted to make sure that the church is very much inclusive, then you have to start from the literature. If there is no literature, then it will be very difficult for the Christian community to do the start doing the groundwork. So writing narratives about the queer peoples and then include in the theology study. This is very important. And even the eunuch, the word eunuch, you also need to do a further research on the the actual meaning of eunuch, which is, I think it's not related with gender and sexual minority peoples.